I know it's not about you, but is it a little bit personal coming up against the old side and just wanting to knock them off?
Not at all.
Yeah.
And maybe a little.
He sort of gave us all, as neutrals, a way into this game, Brett Ratton.
Yes,
Robbo was winding him up last Monday night. He eventually got there, and really, that was such a flinch moment in the game, which is worthy of some in its own right. St Kilda got themselves out of a jam. They defended 6th place on the ladder, and this stretch for North Melbourne goes on. Brett Ratton's got one last chance against the Eagles over in Perth to get a win in his caretaker role. Our coaches tonight, so Ross Lyon out of that game. Ross, welcome back to 360.
Thanks, Stuart. Great to be here.
Chris, great to see you in such a momentous week. Thanks for being here.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Are you closet laddered predictors? You once confessed that you were. Have you had a little glance?
Yeah. Our theory is that the coaches should be all over it so we can protect the players from doing it. And I think in reality it kind of works a little bit the other way around, but have been in the past, a little less so at the moment because the equation's much more simple for us right at the moment.
Ross?
Well, I think when you're rolling, I've had a couple of teams that have rolled, but when you're in the mire, I don't even know who we're playing the week after, so not at the minute. But you hear the narrative and then I click on, I think, we're 6th. How's that happened?
Yeah, as if you weren't looking at the ladder, you'd think you're about 14th, I reckon, the way that it's rolled.
But everyone tells me the ladder doesn't lie, right? Does it lie?
There's no points for style. You just got what you got, and you've got enough at the moment at 40.
Were you tense yesterday more than any other game? I mean, North haven't won a game for so long, and there was a bit of a build-up, whether you're in it or not. Who really
I wasn't
cares?
in that. I didn't interest.
It was great for everyone else. But when the game was on...
I thought it was Rewalt and Ratton, wasn't it? Isn't that what it was?
It was.
Well, it wasn't me.
I don't know.
Was it St Kilda and North?
No, who cares? It was great.
Okay.
So when the game was getting played, the first half was pretty ordinary. Third quarter wasn't great. Final quarter was more...
Why was it ordinary in the first quarter?
Oh, you were 4 goals down against the first half against a team that hasn't won since round 2.
Yeah.
You're sitting in 6th spot.
Yeah.
You know,
I thought we started well. I think we kicked 3-5. They took some opportunities. Second quarter lost our... Yeah, it was tense at 3/4 time. The abuse coming down was red hot.
Was it really?
I thought, welcome back. But I thought, fair enough, right?
So what did you say? How do you address it? Was it numbers or was it...
You think, what else? It's amazing what you can think in a short period of time.
What was the thesis at 3/4 time?
Look, our coaching group, I'm really pleased, and I've espoused their virtues all year. So we come together as a group. We looked around that whiteboard, and it was let's get Owens into the ruck and the magic potion, Sinclair into the midfield, which we do a lot. That's no secret. And
Marshall forward was
Marshall forward because we're so young and intercept marks. I think they took 12 for the game. So look, our leaders stood up. Our young kids, Sharman went to Mackay, and we got a hit around the ball. Steele stood up, and it become a bit of a weight of numbers. It was pretty simple.
Big play
competed,
there,
right, and drove it forward and got hold of them. And we kicked 5-3 in a quarter. I wish we played like that all the time.
I was curious. So we're going to talk your longevity, Chris, as this goes on. Time on of the third quarter and your team's kicked 1 goal. I don't know what your conversation was like in the box.
Yeah, it was a really unusual game for us. And especially given we sort of sensed coming into the game that we turned the corner a little bit, particularly... No, all over the field, but, scoring generally hasn't been a problem for us. We've had problems this year, but our offence has sort of been towards the bottom of that list. And really, it was... we had our chances as well. I think we kicked 1 goal, 8 or something, missed some sitters, and but really it was, the way the game was played through the midfield and the contest, and it was the quality of opportunity that we just weren't getting. But fortunately, we were defending okay, and the opposition hadn't scored that much either, and we generally went in at 3/4 time thinking, I'm paraphrasing, but it can't get much worse than this. If we do play something more like ourselves, we're a really good chance to win it, which is the way it kind of played out. We had our chances.
You got a trump card which you've used a couple of times, which is Tom Stewart going into the centre bounce and then pushing him back, a little bit like you pull your...
Yeah, the potion.
The potion. He doesn't stay in the midfield though, but he could be a fantastic clearance midfield if he stayed in there, but I don't know. I'm not sure you can afford to take Tom Stewart out of the back half, can you?
It's always an interesting question with your best players. You know, where are they best served? How do you maximise their strengths? Because there are examples. I'll pluck one out off the top of my head. I think Heath Shaw was like this. He was an elite attacking half-back. And the next logical thing is, well, why can't he do the same thing in the midfield? And to my observation, he just wasn't the same player when he went into the midfield. Tom Stewart, we're pretty sure that he could be a good forward. He's just that sort of guy that wherever you played him, you know, a bit like in underage footy when there was a wind, you play forward with the wind and you play back against it. There was a little bit we were being beaten around the ball, and well, why don't we just throw our best player in there and see if he can change things a bit?
What do you think was wrong? Watching the game, I thought that the kicking efficiency, the disposal efficiency was someone like what I've seen Geelong over many years, like 8-9 years, have been really good users of the ball. What can you explain? Was it poor decision making? Was it nerves, or what was it that had an effect on the ability of you guys to use the ball?
I'm not really sure. Even in review, I'm not really sure, because the part I am sure about was the pressure around the ball, and you know the contested numbers are one thing, but you know your eye has got to be overlaid on those numbers as well. And I thought they were really good, and they had us under pressure where previously we've been able to sort of extricate the ball sort of through that pressure, and we couldn't do that. So that explains some of the sort of pressurised situations. But the part that was inexplicable for us early in the game was that in perfect conditions we were just uncontested, kicking the ball over guys' heads, and it became a little bit contagious. And sometimes you have games like that. You see it in front of goal a lot. You know, I think the Saints were a bit like that on Sunday.
Yeah,
you know,
we missed a few.
You miss a couple, and then the next guy having the shot feels the pressure of, you know, the expectation. We really need this one. And again, I learnt this from Ross. Like the pattern's the most important thing, and it was when you get something that is inexplicable, you can overplay it a little bit. I didn't happen last week. I'd be surprised if it happens next week. So, to an extent, we'll work on it this week, but we'll let it go largely.
So your predicaments are different. You're the defending champions. Yours is a year of exploration. You've lived every week inside the 8. Is the big picture relevant to get the reward of qualifying for finals through the last 5 weeks?
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal. Yeah, for sure. We haven't shied away from that, but focusing on the result doesn't get it done. So we understand we're not playing near what we were early in the year, but in saying that, we're fighting hard to get our best back. So sometimes you just need a catalyst like that last quarter. And it's so coachable, trying to fix bits and pieces. We feel like we lost our transition game because we're fundamentally a transition team. And the competition's so even. There'd only be 3 games I felt we weren't in, really, which was like Adelaide, well, maybe 2 even, like Gold Coast. I don't think we're ever in. So, look, we've found out a lot about our young players, Owens and Malira and Philippou. We had a forward line of 5 players under 20 games. It's no coincidence Marshall goes there. We would have picked Hayes and probably Cordy last week, and Caminiti would have been out. He knows that. So, but he responded. He played well. So we think we can get some experience. Max King should return versus Carlton. So that's pretty. And Tim Membry hasn't. I think they kicked 68 goals between them last year. I think I've had them for 4 games. So. Yeah, look, it's been enjoyable. Like, it was red hot. It was a furnace 3/4 time, right? So my player group just never gave up and they fought, and it was led by Steele and Sinclair and Wilkie, our leaders, and everyone jumped on board. So, yeah, there was some gratification in that, but we know we're playing a red hot Hawthorn, and you look ahead, it's Carlton, and then we got Brisbane and Geelong, so it's pretty fierce, but our best is pretty good.
When media hypes a conflict between you and Les Lane, your chief executive, is that water off a duck's back, or do you think what's going on here? Is there something mischievous going on at the football club or anything like that? Do you investigate it, or you think, I can't do much about it, I'll let it go? Yeah,
it's interesting. I think the key word is hyped. So if you focus on hyped, by your own admission, it's hyped. I would say I don't spend, or Simon does, too much time on it. I think our relationship's in as good a state as it's been all year, really. There was always transition from head of football and full impact to an experienced senior coach coming in and transitioning to CEO. And look, Jeff Walsh was really important appointment, but he had some personal challenges. It's not for me to go into. And then we got an interim in David Misson. So there's always, with a degree of change, some uncomfortability. But I feel like we're at our best platform that we've been all year. So, it's not for me to judge, but I think you need to take Simon and myself at our word.
Did the AFL manage to placate you at all today on the roof scenario?
Was
that a curveball for all of us?
No, it wasn't.
Really?
I was a little bit riled. If you go to the Storm, I don't divert. I would have focused on the last.
Have you ever diverted?
Yep.
The Storm, if you go to the Storm's presser 3 weeks earlier, their captain put it on the table as well. They all slipped over and couldn't pass. And look, I had a great conversation with Laura Kane today.
Yeah.
So, what's really important is the AFL now own Marvel, don't they?
Yes, they do.
So they've got full control. In the past, you could have bleated like that. No one really cared. But to Laura's credit, she got on the phone and she explained the situation. So basically, they have a process. It's imperfect because it's based off no prediction of rain or mist. And so they normally shut it 2.5 hours out if there's no prediction of rain. So somehow they realised the mist is coming in at 11, so they shut it. I said it was heavy mist, right? But they're trying to improve the process. At Clubland, I would say eradicate the risk. Just keep the roof shut Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, because it was we prepare like every week's a grand final. We try and mitigate all risk. I said if it was a grand final, you'd have it shut. Well, there's no game after. Well, it was the prelim, but I understand the challenges of the turf. And was I emotive and was it hot? Yeah. And probably as a boutique club, you fight a little bit and you rail against what maybe at the time is a perceived injustice. So I make no apologies for fighting for our club. But I've certainly been placated by the process and the diving in just to try and edge. They're going to try and edge it forward. The only piece I said was communication once the ground manager knew it was wet, and there may have been a challenge. Now, look, the modern footwear maybe made no difference, but it may have. So just communicate rather than being... I don't like surprises game day.
And your big picture in season, Chris, is there a risk that you miss a place on the grid? We keep talking about what's looming just offshore. The shuffle down to 8th is so volatile at the moment that a loss puts you not only back in the pack, but at risk.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the nature of the unusual draw that we have in the AFL. And I think there's two ways to look at it. One, we've got a challenging draw with some of the teams we play coming home. But the way I'd prefer to look at it is if we make the finals, we'll be coming in pretty hot because we're going to have to play well to beat those teams. And I think that's a better place to be. We've said it for a long time. Clearly, we'd rather be where Collingwood or Port is. But the most important thing is to hit your straps when it counts. In some ways, if you're limping in, you're better off not making it all and focusing on next year.
Is it a case, we were talking before about Simon Goodwin pulling a couple of manoeuvres and Ross at three-quarter time pulling manoeuvres. Is it a case for Geelong getting their predictable team together and having the confidence of that group that you've had to rise again? Or, for example, just an example, Sava Radagalea, he's not fitting in the backup. Do you need to maybe mix it up in the forward line and throw big Sav down there to crash packs? And Tommy's just going okay, he needs to lift. Jeremy Cameron lifted after half time on the weekend. Are you the kind of guy that says, right, it's round 19, we've actually got to do something here. We've got to pluck something, or you've got full faith in the group and the predictability that you've had?
I'm not a huge believer in I think it's really overrated, the trying to, take a rabbit out of the hat especially after the fact. These things are generally reverse engineered. It's not like we sit down and go, that's actually what we're trying to do. You have some success and then people try to drill down to one or two decisions. I think it depends on how confident you are in your best team, and we're really confident that our best team is good enough right at the moment, and we don't feel like we need to do something desperate to change things. It's not to say we're not looking at just tweaking little things, but really I was talking to Ross briefly just before we came in. We probably think that cohesion and understanding what it is we're trying to do is more important for us right at the moment than confusing our players. Even if it's a great idea, we'd probably err towards, we know what makes us a good team, and even like some of the personnel, you know, arguably that is more important. How do we get Cameron up and going and Dangerfield up and going? Hawkins, I mean, Hawkins was probably the best player on the ground last week, so he's not going that badly.
Sorry, Tom.
Yeah, just harnessing our strengths. I think the bigger challenge is when you sit down and you think with your coaches, we're just not good enough. Then you probably do have to try something a bit more radical. I don't think we're at that stage.
Chris Scott and Ross Lyon are our coaches tonight. So we'll talk about the momentous milestone that Chris is reaching this coming weekend with the pair next. The encore edition of Couch is coming up immediately following 360 as Gary, Brownie and Bucks assess the key issues out of the round.
The Moment, brought to you by PointsBet.
He has been our longest serving coach at the desk here on 360, so we have shared in the journey. And on Saturday, it's a historic moment for both Chris Scott and for Geelong. He will become the club's longest serving coach, and that surpasses an iconic figure, not only in Cats history, but in the game in Reg Hickey. Game 305 awaits for a two-time premiership winning coach. So Chris, on behalf of all of us, congratulations as a starting point.
Thank you.
Have you got a sense of the magnitude of it?
I do, actually. Yeah, I do. As you know, all of you, I struggle, especially as a coach, with the personal milestones because I've never really thought it appropriate. You're sort of a representative of your club and you work for your players and, you know, again, the players have milestones and achievements and the coaches are kind of there to facilitate, in my view. But the more that, you know, I came to understand what Geelong has been over a long period of time, and in particular the people that were formative in, you know, the club's evolution, you know, I realised just how unique the place is. Every time I walk out onto the ground, you see the Reg Hickey stand, and you know, if I was never, in my estimation, going to be a career coach. At one stage, you know, coming out of playing, I didn't even have designs on coaching at any level at all. So to be around at least for so long to rack up that number of games, you know, is something I'm proud of and really appreciative. Probably more appreciative than proud, you know, because the club has supported me really well, and yeah, it's an honour to be sort of even in some way associated with Reg Hickey.
Can I ask you, you've known each other for a long time, you often reference Chris when you do interviews and you often reference Ross. As a person to talk football with, say upstairs, for example, you had 10 minutes to yourselves, what's that like? What's the build-up like when you know you have to coach against Chris on a weekend and then game day arrives?
Yeah, I suppose game day is you're coaching the team and the system. So you know they're really well prepared and you know they've been high level, so that's always very challenging, right? So you know you're going to have to get your team to the line. And I've had a couple of victories and a couple of severe hidings, right? So, so on a personal level, very articulate, we know, sharp and concise. So doesn't use words, doesn't waffle as much as I do, very considerate, you know, but you know, the character of an AFL coach, what are you looking for? So you're looking for intelligence, you tick that box, you're looking for integrity, you're looking for perseverance, and you're looking for empathy. So that all sits really comfortably with Chris, and that's why he's been the period of time, when you've been in the seat and you know the challenges and the accountability and the amount of what you've got to give out, what he's maintained his family, speaks volumes.
This is a Geelong story, Chris. You retired and you were sitting at the 2007 grand final watching Geelong have its moment. And then, what, a handful of years later, you're in the seat and the journey since then.
Yeah, it was amazing to think back. At the end of 2007, when I'd finished playing, I was at the grand final with my now wife, Sarah, watching the Cats demolish Port Adelaide. And I think it's the first game I'd, as an adult, sat down and just really enjoyed for the spectacle. as I said, I never really had designs on coaching when I was playing, but I always thought about the game and I always watched it through that lens. And I think subsequent to that game, because I did go to Fremantle as an assistant coach, rarely have I watched a game just to enjoy it. You're always sort of analysing, but it is surreal to think that. And I said to Sarah really early on, because I was 34, I thought I was invited to go through a process at the Cats because they needed to get the numbers up. It was pretty late. It was October in 2010 when they needed to make an appointment. But I said, when I was appointed, it was just like, can you believe that we were sitting there watching this team? And I was just thinking, these guys are off the charts. But it was a challenge as well because I think I briefly spoke to Ross about it. Like, the club was in really, really good shape, but the team was at the end of an era. And it was kind of like, there were a lot of people that were saying, you do realise that there's only one way to go from here. And so I'm really proud of the way that the club has, sort of signed up to try to buck the system a little bit. So, no, we're going to have a crack. We're not going to accept that the year is over and, that automatically means we need to slip down the ladder. That's been a whole of club attitude and I've been really pleased to be a part of it.
You've been awesome. You've been awesome for the club. You've been awesome for the competition, and you've also been quite awesome for the networks who've been covering you over the many years. Jared put this little package together of you.
Bane for the villain.
I remember the days we had to wear.
I love watching this stuff. Is it good?
No, you hate it.
You've got to live it, don't you? You've got to live every moment
Not
of it.
bad 10 moments in 300.
Oh,
I think he's
great.
been pretty controlled, right?
Yeah, that's the best. I think you've been fantastic. I mean, and you've come on this show for, what, 7, 8, 9 years now when we were looking for coaches to come on, and you come on up here every week on the highway and sat down and spoke to us about footy, not just Geelong, about footy, and I think you've taught a lot of people a lot of things in footy, mate, so well done.
So on behalf of all of us at 360 and the broader family, so we treat you like an F1 driver.
Wow.
Just take that home and enjoy it at some point.
Well, Sarah and I will do a shoey.
Well done, buddy.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Great stuff.
Ross, great to have you here. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for coming in.
Ross Lyon and Chris Scott are our coaches on Coaches' Nights. Tomorrow night is Players' Nights. Jack Revolts, wild finish at the MCG. You can put us to the heart of that. And Jordan Dawson, the captain of the Crows. They're ever so close and they've got the showdown looming.